Judge laughs at homeless teen in court, but has no idea who's about to walk in. The fluorescent lights of courtroom 7 cast harsh shadows across Tyler Reed's face as he stood alone before Judge Malcolm Warner. At 17, wearing the only clean clothes the shelter had provided, Tyler clutched a crumpled paper in trembling hands. The judge's mocking laughter echoed through the chamber as he dismissed the boy's stammered explanation. Another sob story from another street kid. He sneered, unaware that the courtroom doors were silently opening behind him and that the man stepping through them would change everything. Courtroom 7 of the Westridge County Courthouse was a monument to intimidation. Polished oak panels lined walls that had witnessed decades of verdicts. The judge's bench loomed like a fortress elevated above the proceedings. Morning light filtered weakly through narrow windows, illuminating dust particles that danced in the air. The gallery was sparsely populated. A few bored reporters, a handful of waiting defendants and court staff who had long ago mastered the art of emotional detachment. Tyler Reed stood out even in his attempt to blend in. 17 years old but looking younger, his lanky frame swimming in borrowed clothes, khaki pants, a size too large, cinched tight, with a belt, a button-down shirt with frayed cuffs. His brown hair, recently cut at the shelter's monthly grooming day, revealed a fading bruise at his temple. 3 months ago, Tyler had been a normal high school junior with decent grades and a spot on the track team. Then his mother lost her battle with cancer, leaving only medical debt and an eviction notice. His father, absent for years, remained unreachable. With no close relatives and a foster system overwhelmed with younger children, Tyler had fallen through society's cracks. He'd been sleeping at the Horizon Youth Shelter, attending school when possible, and working evening shifts at a gas station. What distinguished Tyler wasn't athletic talent or academic brilliance, but extraordinary resilience. Where others might have abandoned education entirely, he still carried textbooks in his backpack. Where many would have surrendered to despair, he maintained meticulous plans in a worn notebook. Budgets, apartment, listings, job applications. Tyler stood before Judge Warner on a trespassing charge. He'd been found sleeping in the public library after hours. The charge was minor, but the consequences were potentially devastating. A criminal record could derail his college scholarship applications, disqualify him from certain housing, and further complicate his already precarious situation. More immediately, the judge could sentence him to juvenile detention rather than the probation that would allow him to continue school and work. Everything Tyler had fought to maintain hung in the balance of this hearing, and Judge Warner, notorious for his tough-on-crime stance, was clearly unmoved by the circumstances that had brought the boy before him. 2 weeks earlier, while organizing donated clothes at the shelter, Tyler had overheard a conversation that changed his trajectory. A volunteer lawyer from the Community Justice Project was discussing a special program with the shelter director, a diversion initiative for first-time youth offenders that included housing assistance. The catch participants needed a stable adult mentor, a detailed personal development plan, and approval from the presiding judge. That night, Tyler made a decision that required more courage than sleeping in abandoned buildings or navigating school while homeless. He would approach the court proactively with a plan rather than excuses. He would ask for this opportunity rather than simply accepting whatever punishment was assigned. The next morning, Tyler approached Maria Diaz, the volunteer lawyer, as she was leaving the shelter. For the next hour, sitting on a bench outside the shelter, Tyler shared his story with a candor he'd allowed few others to see. Maria listened occasionally, making notes, her expression revealing nothing. "The program is competitive," she finally said, "and Judge Warner isn't known for leniency. But I'm willing to help you prepare an application." With Maria's guidance, Tyler transformed his notebook of survival strategies into a formal proposal. They worked evenings at the library, using public computers to research requirements and opportunities. His plan addressed housing, education, employment, and personal development. The mentor requirement proved challenging. Tyler had no relatives, no former teachers with whom he'd been close enough to ask for such a commitment. The shelter staff, while supportive, were already stretched thin. "What about Coach Reeves?" Maria suggested, reviewing Tyler's school history. "Your track coach. You mentioned he checked on you after your mother passed." The next day, Tyler waited outside the school track until practice ended. Coach Reeves recognized him immediately, jogging over with genuine concern. Tyler explained his situation without self-pity, outlined the program requirements, and formally asked if Coach would consider being his mentor. The man's immediate yes caught Tyler off guard. With the final piece in place, Tyler and Maria completed the application. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. On the morning of the hearing, Tyler arrived at the courthouse an hour early, dressed in clothes borrowed from the shelter's donation closet. Maria met him on the steps, professional, in a navy suit, carrying a folder of documents. When his case was called, Tyler approached the defendant's table alone. Maria could advise, but not represent him unless formally appointed. Judge Warner barely looked up from the file, his expression already set in familiar lines of impatience. "Tyler Reed, trespassing on public property after hours. How do you plead?" "Guilty, Your Honor," Tyler replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "But I'd like to request consideration for the youth diversion program." This unusual response caused Judge Warner to look up, eyes narrowing. The diversion program is typically recommended by the court, not requested by defendants. "I understand, Your Honor, but I believe my situation meets the criteria, and I've prepared a detailed plan." Tyler carefully placed his folder on the table, the pages inside representing hours of work and hope. Judge Warner's expression shifted from surprise to something harder. "Young man, this court sees dozens of cases daily. Everyone has a story. Everyone thinks they're special." "I don't think I'm special, Your Honor," Tyler responded. "I just believe in taking responsibility and making a plan to change my circumstances." Judge Warner flipped through the pages with increasing skepticism. When he reached the mentor commitment form signed by Coach Reeves, his eyebrows rose slightly. "You've been busy," he commented, closing the folder. "Now explain to me why you were sleeping in the public library instead of a proper shelter." "The youth shelter has limited beds, Your Honor. Priority goes to younger kids and girls, which I understand. The adult shelters aren't safe for someone my age. The library was warm and felt safer than the alternatives. And your parents? My mother died of cancer 3 months ago, Your Honor. My father left when I was 7. I have no other family in the state." The judge's expression remained unreadable. "So, you decided breaking the law was your solution?" Tyler felt a flicker of frustration but kept his voice even. "No, Your Honor. I made a mistake out of desperation. That's why I've developed this plan to create better options for myself." Judge Warner's response was unexpected, a short, dismissive laugh that echoed in the quiet courtroom. "Mr. Reed, do you know how many plans I see that never materialize? How many promises made in this courtroom are broken before defendants reach the parking lot?" The mockery in his tone was unmistakable, cutting through Tyler's carefully maintained composure. For the first time, he faltered, unsure how to respond to ridicule rather than questioning. And that's when the courtroom doors opened. The figure who entered moved with quiet authority, a tall man in his 60s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair contrasting with dark skin. He walked directly to the gallery's front row and sat down, his presence immediately drawing attention despite his silence. Judge Warner, interrupted mid-sentence, glanced up with annoyance that quickly transformed into recognition. His expression shifted, subtly surprise, then something like wariness. "As I was saying," the judge continued, his tone noticeably moderated, "these diversion programs require extraordinary commitment. Mr. Reed, while your initiative is noteworthy, I'm not convinced you understand the responsibility involved." Tyler, unaware of the silent exchange occurring behind him, gathered his courage. "Your Honor, I've maintained perfect attendance at school despite being homeless. I've kept my job despite having no transportation. I've stayed out of trouble except for this one incident. I believe that demonstrates commitment." The judge studied Tyler with new attention, occasionally glancing at the distinguished visitor. "The prosecutor's office hasn't had time to review your application properly. We'll need to continue this hearing until next week for their input." Tyler's heart sank. Another week of uncertainty, another week of precarious shelter arrangements. "In the meantime," the judge added, almost reluctantly, "you are released on your own recognizance with the condition that you check in daily with court services." It wasn't approval, but it wasn't detention either. As Tyler gathered his documents, he finally noticed the man whose arrival had coincided with the judge's change in demeanor. Their eyes met briefly, the man's gaze direct and assessing, Tyler's confused but grateful. The prosecutor's office was intimidating, all gleaming surfaces and hushed efficiency. Assistant District Attorney Sophia Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, welcomed Tyler and Maria into a conference room where, surprisingly, the distinguished man from the courtroom was already seated. "Mr. Reed, I'm Ada Chen. I believe you've noticed Mr. James Harrington, though you haven't been formally introduced." The silver-haired man extended his hand. "Tyler, thank you for joining us." Tyler shook his hand, confusion evident. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't understand why you're interested in my case." Harrington smiled slightly. "Let's just say I have a particular interest in Judge Warner's handling of youth cases. Your approach caught my attention." Ada Chen interjected smoothly. "Mr. Harrington sits on the state Supreme Court Judicial Review Committee. He's been observing various courts as part of an evaluation process. The implications were clear. Judge Warner was being assessed by someone with considerable influence over his career. Tyler's case had inadvertently become part of a larger scrutiny. For the next hour, Chen questioned Tyler about every aspect of his proposal, his educational goals, employment history, and plans for self-sufficiency. Her questions were probing, but not hostile, seeming genuinely interested in testing the viability of his plans. At the meeting's conclusion, she gathered her papers without revealing her position. "I'll see you at the hearing, Mr. Reed. Thank you for your candor." The second hearing arrived with Tyler better rested, but no less anxious. The courtroom was noticeably fuller. Several court staff who had no obvious reason to attend, a few additional attorneys lingering after their cases, and Justice Harrington again in the front row. Judge Warner entered with careful neutrality, his previous mockery replaced by professional detachment. When Tyler's case was called, ADA Chen approached the prosecutor's table with a folder matching Tyler's in thickness. "Your Honor, the state has reviewed Mr. Reed's application for the diversion program. While his situation is unusual, we find his plan both comprehensive and feasible. With appropriate supervision and the committed mentorship already arranged, the state supports his admission to the program." The prosecutor's endorsement represented the first significant external validation of Tyler's efforts. Judge Warner's expression revealed nothing as he turned to Tyler. "Mr. Reed, the prosecutor's support is significant but not determinative. This court must be convinced that you truly understand the opportunity being considered and the consequences of failing to meet its requirements." Tyler stood straighter, meeting the judge's gaze directly. "I understand, Your Honor. This isn't just about avoiding punishment. It's about building a foundation for my future." Judge Warner studied him for a long moment before continuing. "Very well. I am provisionally approving your admission to the diversion program subject to weekly progress reviews for the first month." The words "provisionally approving" sent a wave of relief through Tyler so intense he momentarily felt lightheaded. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a critical first step. The following weeks unfolded with a rhythm Tyler hadn't experienced since before his mother's illness. Mornings at school, afternoons at his new cafe job, which paid better and offered more flexible hours than the gas station evenings divided between homework and program requirements. Coach Reeves helped him secure a spot in a transitional housing program for students, a small studio apartment subsidized through an educational foundation. The weekly review hearings with Judge Warner continued, each one less adversarial than the last. The judge's initial skepticism gradually gave way to business-like assessments of Tyler's progress reports. As the one-month mark approached, when Judge Warner would decide whether to fully admit Tyler to the program or revoke the provisional status, a new challenge emerged. The cafe where Tyler worked was changing ownership, putting all staff positions temporarily in limbo. Simultaneously, a pipe burst in the transitional housing building, requiring all residents to relocate for at least 2 weeks during repairs. These simultaneous disruptions threatened the stability Tyler had carefully constructed. Without stable housing and employment, 2 key conditions of his diversion program were at risk. The final review hearing was scheduled for Monday, giving Tyler just 3 days to resolve these issues before facing Judge Warner. The Friday before the crucial final review hearing, Tyler received a call that shattered his carefully reconstructed world. The number was unfamiliar, the voice on the other end one he hadn't heard in nearly a decade. "Tyler, it's your dad." Michael Reed had abandoned the family when Tyler was 7, occasionally sending birthday cards with empty promises before disappearing completely by Tyler's 10th birthday. Now, with suspicious timing, he had resurfaced. "How did you get my number?" Tyler asked, his voice tight. "Your mom's obituary was online. I've been trying to find you for months." The man's voice cracked with what sounded like genuine emotion. "I know I've been absent. I know I failed you, but I'm sober now. I've been for 3 years. When I learned about your mom, I wanted to make things right, to be there for you." Tyler's emotions collided, anger, confusion, a treacherous flicker of longing for family he couldn't entirely extinguish. "I'm doing fine," he said finally. "I have a plan, a place to stay, people helping me." "That's great, son. Really great." Michael paused. "But I'm your father. I have rights and responsibilities I want to fulfill now." The implication was clear. Michael could potentially disrupt everything Tyler had built, claiming parental authority despite years of absence. More immediately concerning, he was asking to meet before Monday's hearing to support Tyler in court. By that evening, Tyler's carefully constructed stability was threatening to unravel. His father had called twice more, becoming increasingly insistent about meeting before the hearing. Coach Reeves was concerned that Michael might legally challenge the temporary housing arrangement. Even Justice Harrington, whom Tyler had cautiously contacted, expressed concern about how Judge Warner might react to this new complication. Sunday afternoon, Tyler finally agreed to meet his father at a coffee shop near Coach Reeves' house, with the coach waiting nearby as a precaution. Michael Reed looked older than Tyler had expected, his hair graying, his face lined with what might have been regret or simply the effects of hard living. "You look so much like your mother," Michael said by way of greeting, his eyes suspiciously bright. Tyler sat stiffly, hands wrapped around his coffee cup. "Why now? After all these years, why show up now?" Michael's explanation unfolded in fragments: years of addiction, failed attempts at recovery, a new start in another state. He spoke of regret and redemption, second chances, and making amends. Some of it rang true, some felt rehearsed. When he finally reached the present, his tone shifted subtly. "I've got a place now, a steady job, 2-bedroom apartment. You could have your own room, finish high school without all these court programs and supervision." Tyler studied his father carefully. "How did you know about the court program?" Michael hesitated just a fraction too long. "Your mother's neighbor mentioned you were having some trouble. I made some calls." It was the first outright lie, and it crystallized something in Tyler's mind. His mother had moved 3 times after Michael left. The last neighbor would have no knowledge of Tyler's whereabouts, let alone his legal situation. "Who contacted you about me?" Tyler asked directly. The older man's defensiveness confirmed Tyler's suspicion. "Look, it doesn't matter how I found out. What matters is I'm here now, ready to step up. In fact, I've already spoken to someone at the court about withdrawing you from this program thing, having the case dismissed since you'll be in proper parental custody." The pieces suddenly aligned in Tyler's mind: his father's suspicious timing, his knowledge of court details, his confidence about case dismissal. Someone wanted to undermine Tyler's progress, and they'd found the perfect tool in Michael Reed. "Who was it?" Tyler pressed. "Who contacted you about my case?" Michael's facade cracked slightly. "Just some lawyer. Said he was concerned about you being in this program instead of with family. Offered to help with the legal stuff if I came forward." "A name," Tyler insisted. "I need a name." "Caldwell, I think. Richard Caldwell. Look, does it matter I'm trying to help you here?" The name hit Tyler like a physical blow. Richard Caldwell, Judge Warner's son-in-law, an attorney, known for his close connections to the court. The implications were staggering. That evening, in Coach Reeves's living room, an emergency strategy session unfolded. Maria Justice Harrington, connected via speakerphone. Coach and Tyler reviewed their limited options. "Caldwell's involvement is troubling," Harrington acknowledged. "He has no official connection to your case, which makes his behind-the-scenes manipulation highly inappropriate." "But proving it would be nearly impossible," Maria added, "and directly accusing the judge's son-in-law of interference would be suicide for Tyler's case," Coach finished grimly. Tyler, who had been quiet throughout much of the discussion, finally spoke. "What if we don't fight it directly? What if we use it?" The adults exchanged confused glances. "My father's appearance is supposed to disrupt everything, make me look unstable, make the program seem unnecessary. But what if we incorporate it into the plan instead?" Slowly, a counter-strategy emerged. Rather than hiding Michael's reappearance or allowing it to blindside the court, they would address it proactively, acknowledging his contact while demonstrating Tyler's mature handling of the situation. They would present an amended plan that included limited supervised family reconnection as a potential component of Tyler's development, but with clear boundaries that maintained the program's structure. As midnight approached, Tyler made one final call to his father. The conversation was brief but transformative. "I can't pretend the past didn't happen," Tyler told him, "and I can't be the son you're suddenly ready for, but I'm willing to consider careful steps toward some kind of relationship on my terms as part of my overall plan." Michael's response was subdued, perhaps chastened by the afternoon's confrontation. "I'd like that, and I'll stay away tomorrow, like you asked." "Actually," Tyler said, "I'd like you to come, but not to interfere, to observe, to see what I've built for myself. Can you do that? Just watch and not try to take over." The silence stretched so long, Tyler thought the connection had dropped. Finally, his father answered, "Yes, I can do that." Monday morning arrived with a crystalline clarity. Tyler woke before dawn in the small guest room at Coach Reeves's house, reviewing the amended plan one final time. The document now included a section titled Family Reconciliation Framework, a carefully structured approach to potential relationship rebuilding with appropriate boundaries and professional support. In the courthouse lobby, they met Maria, who had arrived early to file the amended plan. Her expression was cautiously optimistic. "Justice Harrington called the court administrator directly this morning. He'll be attending again, and he's bringing Chief Justice Morales with him." She lowered her voice. "That's significant. Morales chairs the Judicial Ethics Committee." As they waited outside courtroom 7, Tyler spotted his father entering the building looking uncomfortable in what appeared to be a newly purchased suit. Their eyes met briefly across the lobby. No words exchanged, just a small nod of acknowledgement from each. Minutes later, Ada Chen arrived immediately, pulling Maria aside for a whispered conversation. When Maria returned, her expression was difficult to read. "The prosecutor received a call this morning from Richard Caldwell inquiring about your case. She found it unusual enough that she documented the call and reported it to her supervisor." Maria's voice remained professional, but her eyes reflected satisfaction. "It seems Mr. Caldwell was unaware of Chen's reputation for meticulous ethical boundaries." Standing outside the courtroom doors, Tyler was seized by a sudden paralyzing doubt. What if his counter-strategy backfired? What if addressing the manipulation directly angered Judge Warner? What if the presence of the judicial officials created resentment rather than accountability? Maria noticed his hesitation. second thoughts. What if I'm making everything worse? Tyler admitted quietly. What if fighting back just proves I don't deserve the program? Maria considered this, her response careful. The diversion program isn't a gift bestowed on the deserving Tyler. It's a structure created because it works. Because giving people tools and opportunities is more effective than punishment. Your worth isn't determined by Judge Warner or Richard Caldwell or even your father. It's demonstrated by what you do with the opportunities you're given. Tyler absorbed this, drawing a deep breath as the courtroom doors opened. Then let's show them what I can do. Courtroom 7 was filled to capacity. In addition to the usual court personnel, both Justice Harrington and Chief Justice Morales sat in the front row. Several attorneys who had no business that day lingered in the back, drawn by rumors of high-profile judicial presence. Tyler's father sat alone in the middle, looking simultaneously out of place and determined. When Judge Warner entered his usual confident stride, faltered slightly at the sight of the gallery. His eyes moved from the judicial officials to Tyler to Michael Reed, clearly trying to assess the unexpected dynamics at play. Case number 2023 JV 1042 in the matter of Tyler Reed, the clerk announced. Tyler approached the defendant's table standing straight, despite the weight of so many eyes upon him. Maria stood beside him now, formally appearing as his advocate. Ada Chen approached the prosecutor's table, her expression professionally neutral. Judge Warner cleared his throat. This is the final review hearing regarding Mr. Reed's provisional admission to the youth diversion program. Before we begin, I note there have been some developments since our last meeting. His eyes flickered toward Michael Reed, then back to Tyler. The tension in the room was palpable. Your Honor, Maria began, we have submitted an amended plan addressing recent developments including Mr. Reed's housing situation, employment transition, and the reappearance of Tyler's father after 10 years of absence. Judge Warner's expression tightened at the direct reference to Michael's abandonment. I see. And how does this affect the viability of Mr. Reed's participation in the program? Before Maria could answer, Richard Caldwell slipped into the courtroom, taking a seat directly behind the prosecutor's table. The move was clearly intended to be intimidating, a visible reminder of his connection to the judge. Ada Chen noticed the entrance and straightened her shoulders. Your Honor, the state has reviewed the amended plan and finds it addresses all concerns regarding stability and supervision. In fact, we believe Mr. Reed's mature handling of these unexpected challenges demonstrates exactly the kind of resilience and problem-solving the diversion program is designed to foster. Judge Warner frowned slightly, glancing at his son-in-law, then back to the prosecutor. Ms. Chen, are you aware of any external consultations regarding this case? The question hung in the air, its implications clear to everyone who understood the subtext. Chen met the judge's gaze directly. I am aware that several parties not officially connected to this case have expressed interest in its outcome. All such contacts have been documented in the court record I submitted this morning. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Justice Harrington leaned forward slightly, his attention sharpening. Judge Warner's face flushed slightly. He turned to Tyler, perhaps seeking an easier target. Mr. Reed explained to me why I should continue your participation in this program when your circumstances seem to be in constant flux. Stability is a key requirement. Tyler took a deep breath. This was the moment everything hinged upon not just his prepared statement, but his ability to speak truth to power while maintaining respect for the court. Your Honor's stability isn't just about having the same address or job. It's about having the skills to handle change and challenges without falling apart or returning to bad choices. The past month has taught me that I can face unexpected problems like my housing situation or my father's return without giving up or breaking rules. Tyler gestured toward his father without looking at him. When my father contacted me, someone had told him he could use his parental rights to remove me from this program. That person was trying to manipulate both of us. Instead of letting that happen, I found a way to address the situation honestly and incorporate it into my plan. Judge Warner's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting someone attempted to interfere with court proceedings? I'm stating a fact, Your Honor. My father was contacted by Richard Caldwell, who suggested he assert parental rights to have my case dismissed. A shocked silence fell over the courtroom. Richard Caldwell half rose from his seat, then slowly sat back down as Chief Justice Morales turned to stare directly at him. Judge Warner's face had gone completely white. That is a serious allegation, Mr. Reed. It's not an allegation, Your Honor, Tyler replied steadily. It's my father's testimony, which he's prepared to give under oath if necessary. Michael Reed stood up from his seat, nodding once to confirm Tyler's statement. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Judge Warner's eyes moved from Tyler to his father, to his son-in-law, then finally to the two Supreme Court justices watching the proceedings with intense interest. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its usual authoritative edge. This court will take a 15-minute recess. Ms. Chen, Mr. Caldwell, and counsel, please join me in chambers. As the judge left the bench, the courtroom erupted in whispers. Tyler remained standing, uncertain what would happen next. Justice Harrington approached him, speaking quietly. Whatever happens next, you've demonstrated extraordinary courage and integrity. Those qualities will serve you well regardless of the outcome today. The 15 minutes stretched to 30, then 45. When Judge Warner finally returned, his face was composed, but his eyes held a new weariness. Richard Caldwell was noticeably absent. This court has reviewed all materials related to Mr. Reed's participation in the diversion program, he began formally. Based on the comprehensive nature of his plan, the strong support network he has established, and his demonstrated ability to overcome significant obstacles, I am granting full admission to the program effective immediately. He paused, then added something unprecedented. Furthermore, I want to commend Mr. Reed for his extraordinary resilience and integrity in the face of challenges that would defeat many adults, let alone a 17-year-old. This court has perhaps been overly skeptical of his capabilities. That skepticism was misplaced. The victory was complete, but understated no dramatic pronouncements, no public acknowledgement of the attempted manipulation. Yet everyone in the courtroom understood what had happened. A powerful man had been forced to confront his own prejudice and the corruption it had enabled. As the courtroom cleared, Tyler found himself surrounded by his unexpected support network, Coach Reeves, with a hand on his shoulder, Maria gathering their documents, Justice Harrington exchanging contact information for future mentorship opportunities. Even Ada Chen stopped to offer congratulations and mention a pre-law program at the state university that might interest him. his father approached last, hanging back until the others had moved away. "That was impressive," Michael said awkwardly. "You didn't need me at all." Tyler considered this. "Maybe not. But I'm willing to see if having you in my life might still be valuable on my terms following the plan we discussed." Michael nodded, understanding the boundaries being established. "I'd like that chance." Within days, the practical benefits of the court decision began materializing. Tyler moved into permanent student housing through a program Justice Harrington had recommended. The cafe ownership transition completed with his position not only secured, but promoted to shift supervisor with increased pay. Most significantly, he received notification that his juvenile record would be sealed upon successful completion of the diversion program, preserving his college opportunities. 6 months later, the changes extended far beyond Tyler's individual circumstances. Judge Warner, perhaps seeking redemption or simply recognizing an opportunity to improve his court's functioning, had implemented new procedures for youth cases, including mandatory consideration of diversion programs for all first-time offenders and appointment of volunteer advocates from the Community Justice Project. Richard Caldwell had quietly relocated his practice to another county following what was officially described as an ethics review by the State Bar Association. Justice Harrington had expanded his court observation program, bringing increased transparency to juvenile proceedings throughout the state. For Tyler personally, the transformation was profound but nuanced. He remained in the diversion program, meeting all requirements while maintaining his academic standing and work responsibilities. His relationship with his father developed slowly, with professional counseling support, not the instant family reunion Michael might have wanted, but a cautious rebuilding that honored Tyler's autonomy. Most significantly, Tyler had begun volunteering at the youth shelter, helping other teens navigate the legal and social service systems he had mastered through necessity. What had begun as his personal survival strategy was evolving into a potential career path in youth advocacy or public interest law. 1 year to the day after his first appearance in Courtroom 7, Tyler stood on the steps of the courthouse in a crisp white shirt and tie. He had just completed his final review hearing, receiving formal notification that his diversion program requirements had been fulfilled and his case officially closed. Coach Reeves waited nearby to drive him to school, where Tyler would take his final exams before graduation. His father had sent a congratulatory text that morning, maintaining the respectful distance their still healing relationship required. Maria had attended the hearing, her pride evident as the judge formally dismissed the case. As Tyler descended the courthouse steps, he passed a nervous-looking boy about his age, clearly heading for his own hearing. Their eyes met briefly, the other boys filled with fear and uncertainty that Tyler recognized all too well. "Hey," Tyler said, pausing. "First time in court?" The boy nodded, clutching a crumpled summons. "It's intimidating, but you'll get through it," Tyler told him. "There are programs that can help people who will listen if you have a plan. Don't let anyone tell you your story doesn't matter." The simple exchange lasted less than a minute, but as Tyler continued down the steps, he felt the completion of a circle. 1 year ago, he had stood in that same spot alone and terrified about his future. Today, he carried not just his own success, but the knowledge to help others find their way. Coach Reeves noticed his pause. "Everything okay?" Tyler nodded, looking back at the courthouse that had once represented his greatest fear and now marked his greatest triumph. "Yeah, everything's good." As they walked to the car, Tyler reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The mockery in Judge Warner's laugh that first day had nearly crushed his spirit. The unexpected arrival of Justice Harrington had changed his trajectory. But ultimately, it was his own resilience, his refusal to surrender to circumstances or manipulation that had transformed his life. The courthouse grew smaller in the side mirror as they drove away. Tyler didn't need to look back anymore. His focus was firmly on the road ahead, college applications, his growing advocacy work, the relationships he was building and rebuilding. The past year had taught him that justice wasn't always automatic, that systems could fail, that powerful people could abuse their positions. But it had also shown him that courage could challenge corruption, that integrity could withstand manipulation, and that even a homeless teen with nothing but a plan could change not just his own life, but potentially the lives of others who would follow in his footsteps. "Ready for what's next?" Coach asked as they approached the school. Tyler smiled, the weight of the past year lifting from his shoulders. "More than ready,"